So this is Blake Atwood with FaithVillage.com. Today we're talking with Carey Nieuwhof, the lead and founding pastor of Connexus Community Church in Barrie, Ontario. That's in Canada. He writes a consistently useful ministry leadership blog at CareyNieuwhof.com, and some of that appears on FaithVillage.com, which we're thankful for. He's also authored 2 books, Leading Change Without Losing It and Parenting Beyond Your Capacity, co-authored with Reggie Joiner. In fact, we're talking with Carey today as he's in town as part of the Orange Tour, along with Reggie Joiner and a bunch of other smart church leaders. So thanks for your time today, Carey.
Hey, my pleasure. Nice to finally meet you face to face.
Yeah, exactly. Put your profile picture with an actual person.
Yeah, that's right.
So I have 3 topics I wanted to discuss with you today, and I think all 3 areas will resonate with you. So the first is all about leadership. So tell us about your calling to become a pastor, and I have a couple of questions about that. Did your calling happen in an instant, or did it take years? Before entering into full-time ministry, what were your expectations for the job? And did your ideals collide with reality?
Oh, those are great questions. Yeah, to answer the first one, my calling happened all at once and took years, to be honest with you. I had always planned on being a lawyer, and I went to law school. Best thing to come out of law school was my wife. We met in first year, so that was awesome. And I was a Christian. I had recommitted my life to Christ, but it was between first and second year law, when I was summering at a law firm in my hometown, that I discerned for the first time a call to ministry. And it really was, for me, it was a supernatural call to ministry. And it was surprising. I was just shocked. I mean, we could spend the whole interview talking about that, but it was one of those things where I don't think God would have ever gotten my attention in terms of vocation and career if there hadn't been some supernatural elements to it. And I'm not like a super charismatic. I see God in, every moment and every piece of burnt toast. I mean, I'm not that kind of a guy. So it really was God getting a hold of my attention, and then that was confirmed, much to my surprise, in the counsel of many people at our church and in leadership. And they said, yes, we see this in you. And so I had to wrestle that down. So I finished law. I articled in downtown Toronto, and then promptly resigned as a lawyer and went into seminary right after that. And really it was a process of trying to figure out what I was going to do, because I don't have the gift profile for a traditional pastor. I ministered for the first 12 years in the Presbyterian church, and I just don't fit the profile of most pastors. So it was a really confusing journey for me. Because compassion is not at the top of my gift list, although leadership is, and I'm a risk taker, and so all of those things put together really made me think I don't think I belong in a congregation. But we tried to stay open. By that point, my wife and I were married, and we tried to stay open, and we prayed about it a lot, and ended up at 3 little churches an hour north of Toronto, 3 Presbyterian churches. And that's sort of where our journey began. And I'm still ministering in the same community 18 years later, now in a non-denominational context. And, I've changed everything about those churches and our leadership style in the last 18 years.
Very nice. It's really interesting that your journey is one from law to grace.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It really is. Yeah.
So let's see. This could be a hard question, and
sure.
Hopefully not too many things come to mind. But what has been the biggest challenge you faced as a senior pastor?
It's probably my own growth and development. I started out when I was 30 years old. That was 18 years ago. I'm the same person that I was 18 years ago. There's a core DNA that I think God just creates, but I've had to change so much. I've had to learn so much about working with people, about humility, about working with a team, about being a boss, of leading at first a very small group of people and now a much larger organization. How to be a dad. I've had to reinvent my parenting style, from toddlers to teenagers now to having almost adult children, 1 adult child and another one finishing school, like high school. And so it's been a lot of change, and learning how to be a husband and learning how to be a boss and all of that. So it's mostly been the self-leadership. And I found a lot of the instincts that got me started are things that can work against you as you get older. The upside of your gifting is also the shadow side of your gifting. So I'd say it's self-leadership.
It's a very good answer. It's an unexpected answer. I kind of expect somebody to say, this happened in the past with some church member or some issue within the church, but it's refreshing to hear a pastor say, no, it's me.
Well, and all of that is true. I mean, we've had lots of issues that we've had to surmount and lots of opposition to certain changes and lots of great moments as well. But, when I look ahead to the next 20 years of my life, I just realize I have to keep changing. I have to keep growing. And, emotional intelligence has been, and I think that's very closely linked to, even though it's sort of a business vocabulary or a social anthropology vocabulary, I think it's very, very tied to spiritual growth, to humility, to self-awareness, to awareness to God. And so I look at my next 20 years, and I'm sure it's going to be a whole lot of new things that I've got to navigate as a leader and figure out how to relate to the people in the world around me and how to bring out the best in them and limit the negative parts of what I might bring to that conversation.
It's a very good answer. It's very good advice for younger pastors too, even younger leaders. So on your blog, it's CareyNieuwhof.com. You do this series called Leadership Trends With.
Yes.
And you've interviewed a number of church leaders that you're friends with or that you've met online. And I thought it would be interesting to see what characteristics do you see that they all have in common. And another way of asking this question is, what are the essentials of leadership? Just about.
What I like, and I only did a few of those interviews because I was finding that long-form video didn't really connect with the readers as much as I thought it might. But my favorite, that came out of the idea that my favorite conversations are conversations like this, where I gather with other leaders and we just talk about what's next or what are you seeing. And those are my favorite. And often they happen in the back hallways of conferences where speakers gather, or you're having lunch, and I'm just always interested in what's next. So I think a couple of trends that would connect people like Rich Birch and Ron Edmondson and Frank Beeler, I think I interviewed for that, and Brian Dodd, whom I interviewed, and Casey Graham. They're always thinking about what's next. They're always thinking about what's new. They always see the opportunity and the possibility. The leaders that I'm attracted to are optimists, not cynics. They're not pessimists. You can find a lot of them around. And so they're always looking for the opportunity in the obstacle. A lot of people see the obstacle, they see the opportunity. And they're adept at change, and they love to change. So those are the kind of leaders that really attract me. And I'm always interested in what's next, because it doesn't take a leader to figure out what happened, but it does take a leader to figure out what's going to happen. And I think that's a real challenge for me as a senior pastor of a church. I mean, we've grown, we've been successful in what we've done, but you can lose that in a heartbeat. And I mean, you get stale or you get stagnant or you don't keep up with what's happening in the culture, and you can be irrelevant tomorrow. And so I think part of my job is to be on the horizon, looking for what's next, seeing what's happening in the community, meeting people in the community, mobilizing younger leaders, and letting them have a hand in shaping the future. So that's what interests me in those people.
I would also recommend going to check out those Leadership Trends videos, because you are missing good content. So, stick with it past 5 minutes.
Yes, please do.
There's some gold in there.